Feel like all right, we're officially recording now.
All right, great. Welcome everybody to another episode of No Particular Angle. I'm your host, Big Paws on a Pup JPQ, and today I got Mr. Warren Hayes with me, the mad recapper, the one-man show. If I start a promotion, I guarantee this guy is my Joey Styles. Mr. Warren Hayes, how are you?
Oh boy, I hope you have good insurance then, bankruptcy insurance. Oh my God. But thank you, John. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I was looking forward to this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, big fan. Let's just jump right into it. WWE is going crazy right now with the road to WrestleMania. All the swifts or all the swerves and turns. You know, it never is a narrow road with them. We know that there's a couple different things coming down the pike. Revival just won the Raw titles. How do you see that tag team division shaping up now that they have a legitimate tag team involved?
I don't know. I honestly, no, look, as much as I'm really, really, really happy that the Revival have won the titles, because I think it's overdue, and I think it is important to the credibility of the titles as well. Man, there is such a shift in the perception of tag teams that has to happen in WWE, not as far as the fans go, but on a purely creative / management level. You know, tag team. You know, they're the common accepted tale here is that Vince McMahon doesn't like tag team wrestling, right?
Right.
That's what we've been led to believe. Is that exactly the case? I don't know, but I mean, there's certainly someone in WWE who doesn't really see the value in tag team wrestling, which is a shame, because if you are a fan of tag team wrestling, or even if you're not, watching guys like the Revival go at it gives you hope. You know, it makes you understand that there's something more to this. Last Monday, well, I think I just put I just placed the recording time in time and space here. But the Raw where they won the titles, you know, the crowd was dead for this match when it started.
Yep.
When it was, the crowd was not into it. They did not want to see this. But guess what? At the end, right? This is awesome chants were happening at the end. Why? Because it was. And that's, and I hope whoever backstage has issues with tag team wrestling, that they took the time to watch the match and understand what was going on, because if it's like anything in wrestling, really, you let the wrestlers, you let talented wrestlers do their thing in the ring, tell the stories, people will get into it. And it just so happens that, you know, the Revival are here, and, you know, Chad Gable is no slouching in about himself either. You know, it's not all on the Revival, but I mean, the point is that if you give tag team wrestling the time of day, people will get behind it.
Yeah. I'm interested. I actually like the fact that they put it on the Revival for a different reason. And I think it has a lot to do with the women's tag team championship coming. The reason being is that they've been doing a lot of double team moves with Ruby Riott, the Riott Squad, excuse me. They've been showing, you know, obviously you've got Bayley and Sasha doing a nice job in the ring with the layouts of tag teams. And to be honest with you, just watching those two teams and then cycle in your Iconics and you know, squash matches and things like that, you know, we've been seeing a better tag team product out of the women than we have the men, in my opinion, over the last couple weeks, if not couple months, as they've kind of been teasing this tag team women's championship. Because of that, I think when you put it on the Revival, what you're saying to the audience at that point, what you're saying to me, what they're saying to you, anybody that's a fan of tag team wrestling, is that we're going to start turning the ship, right? We're going to pivot and we're going to start moving, because we can't have a brand new division of women's tag team wrestlers to put on better matches than the men. And I'm not saying like a gender thing, but like just like established men's tag team, you know, you can't be outperformed from a a tag team perspective by a new division, no matter who it is.
Mm-hmm.
And by them now pivoting and saying like, okay, we're going to give it to the Revival. They're our best tag team. They're our most consistent. They're very old school. They do a lot of double team moves. They have the best double team moves. You know, now they're going to go get the best out of whatever mixed match team they decide to put together. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hawkins and Ryder at the very beginning of this and them be able to go out there and have a good tag team match with the Revival. And obviously the Revival's the ones that are going to carry it for them. But, you know, I see this as a good thing. I would be more concerned if it wasn't. I would be more concerned that they wouldn't change if the women's tag team division wasn't being established. But now that it is, and they put it on the Revival specifically, I think we could begin to see a pivot in the right direction with regards to men's tag team. And call me a dreamer, but that's what I think is going to happen here.
Okay, dreamer. So I'm a little, you know, an unpopular opinion amongst us wrestling fans is being a little weary of the women's tag team titles because they haven't been doing such a good job with the men in the first place, you know. And I'm hopeful for it. That's not the point. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. Women, no titles for women. It's not that kind of thing. I'm really concerned of how they go about and handle it. Because they haven't done such a good job with the men. They've taken the time to establish, you know, Sasha and Bailey as a tag team, the Riot Squad, the Iconics. But then they do that typical WWE thing that they usually do. And this is also a point as well, as far as the men's situation goes as well. You know, in a lot of circumstances, WWE just tosses a couple of people in a tag team when they don't know what to do with them. It's like, oh, just go be a team. You know, we've seen it. We've seen it recently with Chad Gable and Bobby Roode, who have evolved, you know, but are technically it's still technically two singles guys that they put in a tag team.
Yep.
We saw it last year with Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler.
Yep.
You know, again, two singles guys, and guess what? They were the champs.
They were good.
Did the same thing with Sheamus and Cesaro. Of course, that they evolved as well into a legitimate tag team. See, I think this is kind of what I meant when I was saying that there has to be a shift in the perception of what tag teams are. It's not just like a throw or a catch-all where you can just put wrestlers that you're not quite sure what to do with them on a singles level and just put them in there in a tag team and then like, hey, you know, at least we got something for you, boys or girls. You know, it has to go a little further than that because, man, I mean, I'm not a big nostalgia act. I don't like to go back and say, you know, back in the day, you know, I like to think I'm a forward thinker and that, you know, changes in wrestling are good. But if you go back to the territory days and you'd have guys like the Rock and Roll Express main eventing shows.
Yep.
And the Midnight Express. And let's say you'd put, and I'm just throwing this out here, I don't know if the match ever happened, but if you put the Midnight Express or the Rock and Roll Express or the Midnights, the Midnights were healed. You put the Midnight Express in a tag match, in a match against Dusty Rhodes and Magnum TA. Well, the Midnight Express would probably win, and there would be no shame in that because you're putting two singles guys in a situation where you have two tag team experts who do this on a daily basis, who whether it's legit or kayfabe, they either go, they travel together, they do everything together, there's absolutely no shame in having your tag teams beat singles guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We saw moments of that last year as well when Roman Reigns was having his feud with Bobby Lashley and they were in a tag team against the Revival and the Revival would get wins over them. And, people were freaking out. It's like the Revival pinned Roman Reigns. And like, well, that's how it should be, really, so to come full circle, you know, yes, they've been doing a really good job building teams. I kind of feel like Naomi and Carmella is exactly what is the perfect example of what I just said.
Perfect example.
Just like, well, we need another team. You know, let's just put these two. Besides, what are you guys doing at the Elimination Chamber? Right. So there you go. You get a payday. But I'm just a little weary because of the track record that WWE has with the men right now. I don't see how it's going to change for the ladies.
Well, they do. So to your point, they don't hire tag teams anymore, right? I mean, it's half the reason that the Bucks weren't there. Yes, you have heavy machinery. You know, you brought in NXT. Why am I blanking on them? The War Raiders. Street Profits, right? You bring in tag teams that never really begin to make it to the, and so like the Ascension is the same idea, but I think that was WWE built, and then they destroyed it when they got to the main roster, which is fine. So to your point, I agree. It's because they don't have tag teams, they don't bring tag teams in together. There's no way that they can't get away from that cycle of pushing people together, right? Now, with that said, because of that formula, we've seen like you know, Rock and Mankind, right, come together. We've seen Triple H, we've seen Stone Cold come together, right? 2-man power trip or whatever, the power trip, whatever it was called. You know, that's how DX really started, was those two that came together. So it can be done. I like Bobby Roode and Gable. So those two put together at first seemed a little weird, but they've really grown on me over time. And now I look at them as a tag team. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of glad they are. Right. And they have a kick-ass finisher. The moonsault into the neck breaker, man. That's a concussion waiting to happen, though. But I mean, it's fantastic. No, but it's true. So I guess my point is, I'll take it back to WCW because that's really where my roots started. And you would have Pillman and Stunning Steve Austin coming together, and they had to figure out a way to make it work. So they went out and they bought matching tights, and they started doing the little, you know, I can do this because we're on video now. They started doing the little video camera, and they would go out there, and then it took them a while, but they were able to build it into something. So I think the best thing for what WWE can do to their talent is give them time to get over, right, from a tag team perspective, and not shy away from these matches. Give them time to work in the ring, 10, 15 minutes at times, over the course. I mean, shit, you got it in Raw, you can, right? You have 3 hours to fill. But then it's really, to me, it's really the onus of them selling the wrestlers on the fact that we're going to invest back in this division. And if they can do that, I think we can see, you know, some of this talent that's kind of sitting on the sidelines, the Apollo Cruzes of the world, you know, the Ty Dillingers, you know, these people that are kind of sitting there begin to kind of find their way. And there's no reason to believe that with the Revival now supplanted as the best tag team on Raw, that, you know, we can't get a little energy stuck back in. My point to the women's side is that I think they're actually better set up outside of Naomi and Carmella. That's a throwaway, right? That's a throwaway tag team. That's a 6th elimination chamber. Yep. But Riot Squad, you know, Bailey and Banks. You've got Iconics. You have Tamina and Nia, right? Those two fit together. And I'm missing, and then you have Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, who've kind of been together for a while now. So it's like you look at those 5. Like, I'm hard pressed to find 5 people in the Raw division, men's tag team division, that would match those 5 from a cohesion standpoint. I think there's room to build, and I think that now that the Revival are there and they can kind of get more out of, like, they're going to kind of have to teach people how to be tag teams, right? Right. And they're so good at the tag team match that I wouldn't be surprised, like, outside of Heavy Machinery, you can come in and have a match with them. We know that, right? They've been working together for a couple of years now. And I'm trying to stay away from bringing NXT talent up. It's always easy to dive into that well and say, well, if you bring Undisputed Era up, and yeah, I don't want to go there, right? Because yes, we always have that in our back pocket if we need to. But looking at the current state of the rosters, you can get good matches still out of Gable, Roode, and the Revival. You can start putting pieces back together. I think ultimately where they need to go with it is they need to combine the division on one show. right? I've been kind of talking about this for a while. But
I think that's one of the issues right there. Like one of the saving graces, even though they haven't announced it officially yet, but you know, it's been rumored and everyone's, you know, sort of expecting it, is that the women's tag team championship will be floating.
Right.
We'll be able to go from brand to brand.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing the amount of considering the amount of tag teams that exist on both brands right now, which isn't all that many, it would just make sense to have floating tag titles as well, right? I mean, there's it's not even a question of necessarily combining the rosters. You can keep them,
Separate.
You keep them separate. That's fine. The pay-per-views, they're all mixed now. There's no more brand specific pay-per-views.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no real reason to have both a Raw and a SmackDown tag team champion when again, you know, your champions right now on SmackDown are two singles guys, when underneath you have Sanity, you have the Bar, you have the New Day, you have the Usos. I mean, it's just really, really strange that it's not strange. It would make better sense to just have some titles floating, and then have your tag teams have other tag teams feud for other reasons, because right now the only tag teams that we get to see are those who are feuding for the titles.
Yes.
And that's okay. I'm all about stakes. That's fine. I enjoy stakes with my matches, both literally and figuratively. but I mean, if we get to a point where all these teams could just fight over the same title, then you would have time to develop storylines as well. Let us get to know these teams a lot more than outside of the title picture.
No, and I agree, and I think that, so to your point about floating titles, if we begin to switch, so if once we do bring actual general managers back, that's a nice little wrinkle for them to be able to, you know, cross promote between brands by selling back and forth talent, and not like selling, but like selling the titles back and forth. Like, okay, you want me to do this, then I want this to happen on my side, right? Give me Ty Dillinger for 2 weeks. Let me see if I can get anything out of him. And then for that, pick a tag team to go against the tag team titles, right? Like there's a wrinkle there of creativity that you can add to be able to kind of bring back, like, again, something like that. You won't have stagnant Raws anymore, right? They won't be static.
And it'd just help when you get around to Survivor Series season, you know, when it's like, you know, it's like the battle for brand supremacy. It's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
But if you know, it's like, no, come on, guys, we got to go win the tag titles. You know, then it can become a motivational factor. Mm-hmm. Then it becomes fun.
Yeah.
You know, other than this notion that Vince McMahon has in his head that the better brand is the best brand. I don't know. Let's like it doesn't. Right. It just doesn't.
Raw is always number one.
Yeah, exactly.
Never forget it. Okay. So to that point, like I sit here and I look at the. I think when they did the shakeup, they really did themselves a disservice by not putting any type of talent from the tag team division in Raw. Right, that's been their biggest thing. So they've kind of had to mix them together. So they brought in Ascension. Obviously, they're not going to do anything. They're characters, right? You're never going to see the headbangers in WWE anymore, right? It's too reality based. They bring up, they've been playing with the B team for a long time. My favorite still before everything went down was still Sandow and Axel.
Oh man, yeah, okay.
As you know, those two. I'll take it back that far. It's really one of those things where, you know, you actually look at the roster of tag teams that they have, and I can't fault them for having to try to put people together to make sense of their men's tag team division. So I think if they can get like a Cesaro, Sheamus, right, mm-hmm. 2 world champions and different, get them over, get them competing. I think that, you know, they can really begin. So anyway, my point is that the Revival having it makes me cautiously optimistic, right? Not just because they're the best tag team, and they really could hold this. I mean, the best thing for those titles would be that they hold them for a while. Like they hold them through SummerSlam, in my opinion, and they build teams underneath them.
I'd even go farther than that. Like make them the Pete Dunne, make them the Pete Dunne of the tag team division. You know, it's like at this point, you know, if you want to establish some real credibility, it's like make them the ultimate final boss of the tag team division.
Yes.
And then it will allow other tag teams underneath to be created and boosted. That, you know, that's inevitable. But holy crap, you know, if you were to have them hang on to the title for like over a year and a half, or like AJ Styles, you still see people get excited about that. People still get excited about, man, AJ Styles has held the title for over 400 days. Pete Dunne is over 600, and people talk about it with reverence, and especially when it's internet darlings.
Yes,
you know, not like Brock. You know, Brock holds the title for like over a year, and people are like, God damn, let's get it off him. But the Revival are so well liked online, people will instantly get behind it. And then when they finally lose it, it would be a big deal. So just go all in on it, you know?
Yeah, and they can, because the Raw men's division is at such a low point, right? So you can have 3 months of building teams and not the best matches and pre-show matches and early card matches, because you don't have anybody to work off of. But then as you begin to cement teams over time and they learn to get themselves over, well, now, you know, 6 months Money in the Bank, and not like Money in the Bank, an actual Money in the Bank, but like at the event, as well as SummerSlam, WrestleMania, after a whole Survivor Series thing, you can really build back up this division. And again, the only thing that makes me optimistic about it is the fact that they have the titles on the Revival, which I'm sure, you know, Spees from Spees and the Benchmark would love that. It loves that I'm saying this, but it's true, right? Like you have a formulated, just the best tag team going right now in WWE, and they're at the bottom of the pit, right? They're in the basement, and they got to climb to the second story. Who's, you know, so there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of potential there, and I think I tend to lean on the side of we're going to begin in 2019 to see a revival, if you will, of the WWE men's Raw division. Yeah, right there for you.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it's like you said it. You used the word earlier on. You talked about hope. Yeah, and you have to be. I think it's a default mode that a lot of fans have. You know, it's like, oh well, finally this is happening, and you sort of stay hopeful about it.
We're our own worst enemies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, you know, I'm edging more on the cautious side than the optimism side, because I'm just really fearful of WWE's track record and how it's just as simple as that.
Right.
It's just as simple as that.
Yeah. Well, even at their heyday in the Attitude Era, it wasn't like it was the best division in the world, right? Like it was better, certainly better, you know, but it wasn't by any means, you know, something that you would, you know, you'd take home and brag about to mama, you know, like there was other things going on. They've always been a single stars company. So yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. If you want to give them a little wait and see approach, that's fine. I'm about to jump off the cliff and yell to the rafters that this is the pivot that I've been waiting for 31 years now. So if you excuse me.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna watch you jump, and then like if you hit the water nice and smooth, you know, a 10-point dive, and the water's nice, it's nice and warm, perhaps nice and salty and refreshing. Well, I might dive in then after. but yeah, I'll definitely wait before tossing myself off a cliff.
There you go. Okay, let's switch gears. Let's move over to SmackDown Women's, right?
Yeah,
this very WWE edition of no particular angle. Currently, Asuka doesn't have a opponent for WrestleMania.
No.
Let me ask you, Warren. Who's ready for Asuka?
Ah, man, nobody. But literally now, it's like it's such a weird situation. as it stands right now with the women, like technically your top 3 women in the company, and I'm not, I wish I could wholeheartedly toss Asuka in there because I am a huge Asuka fan.
Yes.
But the way she's been handled since WrestleMania, you know, I think they always had the perception of her being a star player, but they haven't treated her as one. So right now, your top 3 women in the company, being Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda, they're all in the same feud. They're all doing the same thing together. And you still have another not a tag team, sorry, another title, another championship over on the SmackDown side, where right now it's like, what's the next step here? You know, Asuka won the title at TLC. She defended it at Royal Rumble.
Yep.
We haven't seen her on television since Royal Rumble. And I get it. Like I get it because the Becky, Charlotte, Ronda triangle is so big right now.
Huge.
You have to, I understand that the focus is all on there. And I don't know how quickly we want to get into this, John, but I mean, the idea right now is that you look at the rest of the roster, like today, look at the rest of the roster, and you unquestionably have to ask yourself, who is her next opponent? You can put a whole bunch of people. You can say, Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose. You could go with it, just about anyone on the SmackDown roster, but there's no one left on SmackDown Live to make a WrestleMania caliber match. And I'm not talking about talent. I'm talking simply about star power.
Yep.
The draw factor.
Yep.
There's no one like me personally. Give me 20 minutes of Charlotte and Sonya Deville, and not Charlotte, excuse me, Asuka and Sonya Deville. And I think we are going to be in for a treat.
Yes.
But I mean, it's kickoff show material. And you don't want that for your SmackDown Women's title. You know what I mean? Unless suddenly within the next 4 to 5 weeks that we have left until WrestleMania, Sonya Deville gets the biggest push of all time. But unlikely. But it's right now. There's no real WrestleMania ready credible opponent for Asuka.
I agree. When it comes to, and I don't want them burning anybody that potentially could be in that spot for WrestleMania. We're talking 6 weeks here. You're not going to be able to build. They've proven, even if they thought they could, they've proven they can't. They can't do 6 weeks worth of a hype to WrestleMania when it's not a Rumble or, there's not some type of backstory there to build off of, right? They're starting at ground zero and it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's really going to cost, it's going to cost them after Mania, right? Like you're going to want Sonya Deville. You're going to want Mandy Rose. Like I immediately take that back, but you know what I mean? After WrestleMania for whoever is the champion moving forward, and then you begin to build those stars. So there would be, it would be premature to build one of those people right now. To your point, here's the interesting thing about Asuka on the main roster. So she came in, she had the streak, she's living off the NXT vibe. She takes it through Royal Rumble, then she builds to Charlotte, and then her and Charlotte have a banger, right?
Yep.
A banger of a match. It was the best way that, and I give WWE all the credit in the world, it was the best way to end a streak. Streaks are not easy to close. To do it with Charlotte at the biggest or on the grandest stage of them all in probably my favorite match of the night.
Oh, it was one of the better matches of the evening.
Absolutely. I thought everybody's protected, everybody's good. Nobody can, outside of just the fandom disappointment of Asuka losing, there's nobody can sit there and be critical of that build and storyline.
No, and even myself, like I said, I was a big Asuka fan, and I was shocked.
Yeah.
But after the shock passes, you sit back and you're like, well, it worked. This makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense. And then and I've been of the opinion for a while, and I've got a huge Asuka mark here, but that then her going into the Carmella feud to really cool her down and then put her on ice for a while for then what came into TLC, I was actually okay with. Right?
Really?
I saw it as a repackaging of Asuka. I looked at it not in the short term, but in the longer term of what Asuka is going to be, to get away from this total just dominant badass. You need go away, come back, and when you come back, you're going to be a different version of yourself. I was hoping for Zombie Asuka, but I knew that wasn't going to happen. So when it happened, I wasn't happy while it was happening, but then I looked back on it, and it was, she only lost 6 times over the course of 2018. 2 of those were single matches, one of which was WrestleMania, right? So they protected her. Her only losses came in MMC matches or tag team matches where she did not eat the pin. So even though she wasn't on TV a lot, although she was, but she wasn't, and she wasn't a single star. And there was weeks that they bridged the weeks without her, and she wasn't on pay-per-views and this, that, and another thing. At the end of the day, her win record, really, she started as the Royal Rumble winner in 2018, and she ended it as Women's SmackDown champion her first year. So you take everything into account and you look at it and you say, not a bad year for Asuka, right? Even with that slack in the middle, not a bad year for your first year in WWE. The problem that I have is that that was of my opinion. I think they look at Asuka as being a plug-in player, right? I ultimately think they're going to go Charlotte, Asuka. I think you do too, but I'm going to stay away from that. But the reason I bring it up is only because you can put her on ice for 3 weeks and then supplant her back in, and the fans are going to they're going to buy right back into Asuka, right? You can play out this triple threat storyline, not get her involved with anybody else. And then, the day after Fastlane or going into Fastlane or the day after Elimination Chamber, whatever, you can plug her back in once we've established Ronda and Becky, and then you can make the build, and the build can be pretty quick because of the history there. Ultimately, that's where I think they're going. I think it's a mistake, but I think that's where they're going. But again, if you listen to my last episode, the convoluted storyline that they're in now with Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda is already pissing me off, but that's besides the point. I would like, let's say the triple threat does happen. Let's use the hypothetical that the triple threat does happen, which again, totally could. I would like to see some type of either legend or I just from a WrestleMania perspective, I would like some type of just pop star, like some type of superstar outside of WWE to come in to kind of give me that WrestleMania nostalgia, right? I don't want them burning young talent. I know how people feel about bringing people back, but I think in this instance, given the timeline, given that they really don't have anybody right now for her, it's a perfect opportunity to bring like a Victoria in, right? Who is going to retire at the end of the year from wrestling in general, right? Give her one last show. She's big, she's dominant. I'd like to see Beth Phoenix back and have the Glamazon versus the Empress. I think that would be a nice build. Stay away from the Bellas. We don't need to see the Bellas. We don't need to go that direction. But I think if you bring back somebody you could use Trish. If you think that Trish can do enough in the ring still. Lita, no Lita with regards to that. But you can build a kind of a high profile, more of that superstar-esque match for Asuka to keep her, as I hate to say it, relevant with regards to the SmackDown title. You can have one of these type of showcase matches if you decide to go with the triple threat. What are your thoughts?
I like the idea of bringing in a legend is fine, but I mean you're telegraphing your ending, right? You know what I mean? It's like,
of course you are.
Well, we know what's going to happen, but sometimes it's about the journey, not about the destination. That's right. So it could be interesting, and there's a lot of people, myself included, that I think Victoria does indeed deserve one last go. But the thing is that if for the better part of 2018, I was very, very adamant in a belief, late 2017, 2018, where the women's division was being booked as a division. They weren't booking wrestlers. They were booking a group of women, because all that they would talk about was, first time women's ever this and that. And
it's happening. That's happening in Elimination Chamber.
It's happening. Well, I mean, at least it's the first time ever for the, for the tag team titles.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what this did in the meantime, and it's something I said, you can check my record. I pointed it out, is that if you keep booking a division over booking wrestlers, you're going to end up you're going to end up having just a bunch of figureheads, but no one that we can really sink our teeth into, no characters, no one that we can really latch on to. Now, of course, there's exceptions. Charlotte was an exception during that time.
Yep.
Asuka was an exception. But I mean, you can't toss Becky Lynch in there. She was lost in the shuffle. They tried doing it a bit with Carmella. But aside from the title pictures, because these were women who were all involved in a title situation in one way or another, we were booking a division above booking women. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think this is a consequence of all these decisions. We're at a point where there's 3 really strong women, one who could be strong or could be perceived as stronger, let's put it that way. And then the rest, and then there's no one else, and it's bananas when you think about, like, on SmackDown, on the current roster, you have 2 former SmackDown Live women's champions there. You have Carmella and Naomi,
but
they've been non-factors throughout the entire year. It's an extremely strange situation on that level. So I find it's kind of too bad where we're at a moment where you sort of have to take a step back and, like, well, who could we bring in from the outside to do it? Like, I get it, it's WrestleMania, that's part of the charm.
Yep.
Where you, like, bring in Liberace to dance with the Rockettes.
Bam Bam.
Yeah.
LT.
Yeah, exactly. But holy smokes, it's like there's so much. That's what's frustrating, and that it's there's so much talent that's still there, and the only reason why we're having this conversation is because we feel that they haven't been booked properly, and it's not even a question of talent. It's not a question of whether they can go or not in the ring. Right. And here's something else that we can definitely that may stoke the fires a bit. That gets me going. That grinds my gears, John. You have Mickie James on Raw, who is a legend.
Yes. Who
can still go, and who had a fantastic match with Asuka a couple of years ago. I think it was at Toronto, TakeOver Toronto.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Yeah.
And absolutely, that's the match actually that brought her back into WWE, where management was like, "Wow, okay, well, you want to stick around for one last run," kind of thing. And it's like, so that's what's frustrating, is that you have a top tier worker, a woman who can go in the ring, who can hold her own, who can more than hold her own, push herself to deliver something fantastic. And who we've seen with Asuka before, and know they have chemistry together, and that could work, but she's been treated as a sidekick.
Yep.
She's been she's not even on the right brand. So there's another argument for bringing merging titles together and having the titles float instead of just like over here and over here, because we're missing out on matches.
Yep.
In the meantime, Ronda Rousey is destroying the entire Raw division. She's going through everyone, which I think is terrible booking.
Mm-hmm.
She should have at least lost it once and then regain it. But I mean, going through. But that I don't want to get off.
But here, but to that point, so I think you could see Raw, and so specifically, and I want to ask you a specific question with where you would like to see it go. Just a little fantasy book out, but. Before I do, so here's what makes GMs this is why potential or the GMs have the potential of being fun, right? From a storyline perspective, because now if Charlotte is being supplanted into this triple threat, right? As the GM, and there are no GMs right now, so I understand what I'm doing, but you know, I could sit there as the SmackDown GM and be like, well, this is a bunch of crap. You took Charlotte and you're going to use her in the Raw Championship.
Right.
I have a champion who's sitting on ice because none of these people are ready. Give me Alexa Bliss. Give me Mickie James, right? And then you can begin to build from there. But they ruined that because they got rid of the GMs. So either way, it's like you could make these two divisions work and be able to trade town and do these things, which is really a missed opportunity over the course of the year. But now you're stuck with, you have nobody on SmackDown who can help them out. Can help Asuka. And Asuka, it's not really Asuka's job right now to get anybody else over. Right? I know she's the champion and that's her job, but let's be honest, look at the roster. There's nobody there that's worth her time, especially at WrestleMania. Again, that's a nice backlash, you know, build, right? That's a Fastlane build if it wasn't this time of year. So let me ask you, Warren, how do you solve the Asuka problem? And again, feel free to not, it doesn't have to be logical. WWE rarely is.
Well, you know, that if we go down that path, well, Asuka she goes and murders everyone. You know, you send her everywhere. She goes on Raw, she goes on SmackDown, she just snaps everyone's backs. That's what she does.
I like it.
Problem solved. WrestleMania season is fixed.
It's over.
I'm down a path really where I think if we're staying in the brand split concept, I think that the only plausible situation here is that at Fastlane, Becky faces Charlotte to lift her suspension. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
You know, like here are the stakes. If Becky Lynch wins, her suspension is lifted and she goes to WrestleMania, and Charlotte loses. She gets kicked out of the main event. Sure. Is what I mean.
Gone.
If Charlotte wins, well, Charlotte stays in the main event. Becky stays suspended, kind of thing. Like that. That's how I think it happens.
Yeah.
Because man, to me, it is so clear right now that they're doing the underdog babyface thing with Becky, with everything aligned against her. Like, I don't see any other outcome than her reaching WrestleMania and winning the title. At this point, it just doesn't make any sense to have anything other than that finality. So let's say let's add Fastlane that happens. You get Charlotte versus Asuka, or at least no. So Charlotte loses the match, so she's dejected, kind of thing. But then Asuka comes out on the next SmackDown, and she says, "Well, you know, Queen, you know, I have a score to settle with you." Like, once we get into Fastlane, there's like what, 3 weeks maybe left, 3 to 4 weeks.
It's like, yeah, it might be 4, but it's that weird half week.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The good thing about putting Asuka and Charlotte 2 at WrestleMania is that it's a built-in story.
Yes.
You know, it's like it's ready to go. We don't need months of build. It's Asuka comes out and it's like, there's a wrong that has to be that I have to make right, and I have to pin you. I have to beat you. That's what I have to do next. You ended my streak, you know, and I have to cleanse that of my record. So it can be done fairly easily, and because the story's built in. And now with Charlotte being much more of a flair, you know what I mean? Yeah. She's being a flair. It just adds an extra level of storytelling that we didn't have last year because both ladies were baby faces. So now you kind of want Charlotte to get her ass kicked by Asuka, especially because she's Becky's nemesis, you know, especially since Charlotte is Becky's nemesis. She's, you know, Becky is her Ricky Steamboat, essentially. You want Charlotte to lose. You want Asuka to kick her ass since Becky Becky's done it, but you still hate her. So that's how I see this moving forward. If we had the general managers, like you said, and that's a super, super good point, John. If we had the general managers in a situation where they had to negotiate, because the brand supremacy thing is convenient when it's just convenient when it's Survivor Series time, because otherwise, because if you're a general manager and your objective is to make sure that your brand, your division, or the brand actually is on top and doing good business, well, you're kind of pissed off that your main player is heading over on Raw.
Both of them,
you said, both of them. So you're like, well, yeah. So you have negotiations. You're like, well, okay, you got to give me something, man, because look, I can't control Becky. I'm sorry. You can try, but she does whatever she wants, and Mr. McMahon, well, he superseded us all and got Charlotte over in the situation as well. I mean, that's out of my hands.
Right.
But I mean, I still have to main event. I still have to give my champion something to do. Like you said, send me Alexa Bliss over.
Send me Alexa. And, I know that it's out of my control. So tell you what, I'll send you Cesaro and Sheamus. So now the Revival got somebody. Give me Alexa Bliss for WrestleMania season.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, you can build, but again, they just don't see that. It's always brand supremacy. It's never, how do I make my brand better? And then you put the challenge on the women's roster on SmackDown to say, like, you want this spot? Well, go beat the hell out of each other for the next 6 weeks. And now you can let Sonya to rise, not to be in WrestleMania, but then to have a viable opponent after the fact. Like, there's so many wrinkles here, that you can explore if you just think about it, WWE.
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Okay, so I'm going to throw this. So when I was thinking about this, I wanted to kind of keep it away from triple threat. I agree with you, though. It's going to be Asuka Charlotte. I'm glad that it is. I hope it's literally this glitch in the radar that is this triple threat tease ends. I'm okay if it's a triple threat, mind you. Like, I don't mind that. I just hate how they're getting there. Like, but as a general rule, I'm not a huge fan of triple threats at all in prominent spots on cards.
Yeah.
Let alone WrestleMania main event first. But it's the first women, and Charlotte's earned that position. Like, I can take myself out of the storyline and be okay with the 3. My point is that Asuka Charlotte needs to happen. In fact, I'll tell you that the rubber match needs to happen in 2020. Like, I want to see that match 3 years running. And this is Asuka's turn to get it back. That's where I called that a year ago. I want that to continue to happen. I think we'll get there. But let's say we don't. Let's just say, it's a flare. She gets what she wants. They're going to throw her in. Where do you go? What can you do? What I would like to see happen, I'd like to see WWE utilize, dirt sheets or news outlets, depending on which you read. And this whole article about how they don't have anything for Asuka, and I want them to address that on SmackDown, and I want Asuka to be the one that brings it up, saying, how can you not have anybody for me? It's WrestleMania season, blah, 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 blah. And then Vince McMahon come out and say, okay, well, then who do you want to face? Right? And kind of put the ball on her court. And that's when you bring in Kairi Sane, right? You have a built-in commodity with those two and their history, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like Io. I don't think she's ready as much as I think she is ready, like hard camera wise. She's not ready.
But she's not only is she not ready, they're going to need her in NXT.
They're going to need her in NXT. Well, it can be a one-off, right? It doesn't have to be, her. I said call up. I see what I did there, but it doesn't have to be a call up. But it can be like a quick run and say, like, fine, you want me to pick my own opponent. You guys can't do your jobs. I'm the champion of SmackDown. I'm going to show you how good I am. I'm going to put it all on Asuka. Let her bring in Kairi. Let them have the banger match, right? That they can have. And now we've set up a perfectly fine early card match or mid card match between those two for the SmackDown title. It doesn't have to be for the title, but you could do it for the title. Winner, right? Like, that's an easy fix in my opinion. Like, so for them to say, well, we have nowhere to take this. There's plenty of things you can do.
Oh, yeah.
It's Asuka, for God's sakes. There's plenty of things you can do. So there's that side of it.
No, that's an excellent point. It's like, but you see, like I on my end, I think I think, like, if we're talking about what's next and what's possible, and we decide to, and we start talking about, well, what can NXT provide post WrestleMania as far as build goes, Shayna Baszler is
number one.
She's coming up next,
Yes,
like, for sure.
to.
And right now, especially if Rousey's supposed to take some time off, there's still that rumor going around. Man, Shayna is perfect material to fight with Becky. That would be just it would be a slapper. It would be so much fun. And she has that presence and credibility and that, you know, that attitude that would
the hyena.
Yeah. It'd just fit really, really well with Becky's the man character, right? Mm-hmm. It'd just be a perfect fit. And I agree, like, Kyrie is ready for Maine, if only because she's over. When she did the Royal Rumble last year, she got a pop. When she did the Royal Rumble this year, she got an even bigger pop. Like, the main audience knows who she is. And she ran to the ring with her spyglass, and you're like, my God, this woman is the most adorable thing. Let's just let her do her thing on Maine. And then, maybe we're going a bit off topic here, but that's, yes, Kairi Sane, she's adorable. She does her, her pirate thing, and, she had the NXT title in a chest. It's like, yeah, it's all really cute and stuff. Yeah. But man, when Kairi Sane gets mad, when she gets pissed off, then it's full blown psychosis that happens, right?
It's the best.
Exactly. So of course, like, after with Asuka, it would absolutely be fantastic. And Kairi's ready. Kairi's ready to move up. Main roster is ready for Kairi Sane.
Right. She's right. I think the only reason they haven't brought her up yet is because EO is she's working with EO to get her ready, so when she leaves, she can, because again, language barrier, new place, new this, they're kind of using her to mentor her through the NXT process at the beginning. So hopefully that expedite that process. But again, I just look at it, but I agree with everything that you said. She's ready. She's when she comes up, she's going to be ridiculously over. And again, she's the most over pirate that I mean, again, people like pirates. I get that, but people love her. And the fact that she can get a pirate gimmick over should put full confidence into anybody that it works, or that she can work. But I look at this Asuka thing. Obviously, I don't think they're going here. It's going to be, I can't preface that enough. It's going to be Charlotte Asuka, right? But if I just play it out and I say short build, right? But you need to get the most out of this 4 weeks as possible, right? If the triple threat is going to happen, where do you go with Asuka? I think you can use the narratives that people are using now on the internet to say, hey, it's, they don't know what to do with her, right? You put the ball in her court. You let her call out Kyrie in like a respect battle kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have one of those on the card right now. Typically, you have that Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Triple H, Undertaker, name the person. You know what I mean? Usually you have that. But even last year, you had AJ versus Shinsuke. You know what I mean? Like, you have that respect bout on WrestleMania. You don't have that right now. So you take Asuka, take Kyrie, base him off, short build. We're going to love it. We're going to eat the shit out of that. Like, that's fine. Like, we're golden on that. And then that's a direction you can go. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with it if they decide to go with a triple threat instead.
Yeah, which I don't think they will.
No, of course not.
I think no, yeah. I think honestly, sometimes wrestling Twitter is a weird place when people get mad because Becky's suspended. I'm like, wait, guys,
it's not real.
It's work. Don't worry. It's fine.
She'll be there.
And I think it's expert trolling right now, or expert working the internet right now to tease the triple threat, because I really do think that I really honestly, but I mean, it's WWE, so there's a certain part of me that shouldn't be surprised if it does happen, the triple threat. But I really and sincerely believe, or that people backstage understand that your first women's WrestleMania main event match has to be a one-on-one.
Has to be. It
And
doesn't
it
matter
has
how
to
many
be.
people are in it. It has to be one-on-one.
It has to be. And it has to be with your two top commodities. The woman that you brought in last year and paid millions of dollars to get new eyeballs on the product, right? And get the mainstream attention, versus the one woman that you weren't expecting was to get over as she did, but she did. You know?
Yep. And organically too. Like, you don't get these especially in WWE, but even in just the industry, you don't get these organic popularity.
No. And
often.
And you, just by using the word organic, it made me think of Daniel Bryan, both on a
same idea. 2014. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm convinced. Like, if there's one situation where you have to learn from your mistakes, man, it's Daniel Bryan's build.
Well, not just the triple threat, but even before that and I know Daniel Bryan was part of it with the I gotta lose, and the Bray Wyatt tease in the middle, and then he comes back, and then it's the authority nonsense, and then it's 2 matches at WrestleMania.
But the Royal Rumble.
Oh, well, okay, yes.
The Royal Rumble. It's all that. These decisions, having Batista.
They learned from that one. They learned from that one.
Well, I hope.
Yeah. Well, Becky won the Rumble.
Yeah, you're hoping that they won, and I mean, and this you can even go back just a couple of weeks ago, or at the end of the year when the McMahons all came out and said, well, we're going to listen to you. Well, God damn it, if you're listening to us, if you're listening to your fans, if you're listening to the reactions, you put the goddamn title on Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. Have her fight Ronda Rousey, because this is a fight that has been building since the end of 2018.
Frustrating. If I'm going from point A to point B, and I know that point B is where everybody is, and that's where everybody wants to be, right? And I can take a highway 50 miles per hour and get myself there in 15 minutes. But instead, I decided to take the scenic route that makes me go up the mountain, tight, narrow roads, working my way back down. There's more cause for things to happen to where I don't get to where I need to get to. WWE likes to take the road less traveled, but they take it more often than anybody else. And that's what makes it so damn frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's going to be Charlotte, Becky. Nope. It's going to be Becky, Ronda. I haven't even mentioned Ronda all show. It's going to be Ronda, Becky, and it's going to be Charlotte, Asuka. We know that. But in the case that it doesn't happen, final thoughts, Warren. Who's ready for Asuka?
There's no one ready. there's just like, aside, like, if we're just talking like on pure potential star power, I think the only real WrestleMania alternative that Asuka has is Alexa Bliss.
Right. I would agree.
There's no other woman that has the prestige, the star power, the value that Alexa can bring to a match like that. And it's a shame. And it's not, and this isn't a knock on Alexa. That's, it's an overall problem in the company where you're like, well, there's just not enough title credible women at the ready to just take a spot and like run with it, Yep.
And I would agree. If it's anybody, if it has to happen, if they're going to run with the triple threat and Asuka's got to have somebody, somehow you got to get to Alexa Bliss. It's the only one that makes sense.
That's the only one that makes sense. I agree.
All right. Well, that will do it for us today on no particular angle. I want to thank Mr. Warren Hayes for taking time out of his very busy schedule to talk graps, the old grappening. Where can people find you, Warren?
I do live post Raw and SmackDown recaps every Monday and Tuesday over at youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. JPQ hangs out there. He's a very efficient and qualified moderator over in my chat. Makes sure that everyone stays in line, keeps Kristen Ashley from going off topic and stuff like that. I love you, Kristen. And you can also listen to me on your favorite podcasting platforms as well: Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean. I'm there. And you can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Warren Hayes as well.
Okay, great. For that, feel free to follow me at Big Paws on a Pup on Twitter, as well as at NPA Podcast on Twitter as well. For now, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.